Last night, Damar Hamlin suffered a cardiac arrest following a hit in the Bills game against the Cincinnati Bengals. As per a statement from the Bills, his heartbeat was restored on the field, and he was transferred to the UC Medical Center for further testing and treatment. He is in critical condition. The Hamlin family issued a statement this afternoon thanking everyone for their love and support during this time, praising the amazing work done by the first responders and the healthcare professionals, the amazing Bills organization, and that they are appreciative of everything the Bengals organization has done. And they encourage more prayer. And we're praying. I'm sick. I'm scared. Damar Hamlin made a pretty innocuous, regular tackle on T. Higgins last night with a 7-3 score early on in the game of the year. Football is a violent game. Injuries are sadly part of it. We are so accustomed to seeing a player being down, a thumbs up, a wave to show that they're okay, and then game on. You knew last night this was different. There was no acknowledgement. He made the tackle, he stood up, he fell down, and didn't get back up. The crowd went from frenzy to eerie silence. The reaction of the players on the field was unprecedented. It was gut-wrenching. Stephon Diggs was in pain. Josh Allen put his hands to his face. They were both crying. So was Trey White, among others. The Bengals were too. Joe Burrow went to hug Allen. They couldn't bear to watch. They were witnessing a trauma on the field as Hamlin was given CPR. It was a real fear for them and all of us watching at home. There was a different urgency to the medical staff. Chills went up and down my spine, listening to the words and the tone. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Lisa Salters. Of course, there would be no more football played. That wasn't an option. And great job by the coaches, by Zach Taylor, by Sean McDermott, making sure that was the case. It was about Hamlin, the person, the brotherhood of the NFL players, the bond of the Buffalo Bills. The unknown, of course, if Hamlin would make it. Watching the excellent and the poignant ESPN coverage last night, I started thinking of the players on the field, thinking of their mental health, thinking about what they just saw. I was worried for T. Higgins, who was tackled by Hamlin on that play. I consumed everything I could read and find about Hamlin. I knew his bio, of course. Safety out of Pittsburgh, late round draft pick in 2021. Pressed into action earlier this year as a starter with Micah Hyde injured. But I wanted to know everything about him as a person, a Pittsburgh native from a hard-scrabble neighborhood, witnessing the murder of friends, his upbringing and connection to Pittsburgh, and that's important, helped Hamlin stay in Pittsburgh for college when he had other major offers. Deep ties to the area, which is why he set up his Chasing M's Foundation to help underprovided, underprivileged youth in Pittsburgh, constantly giving back. Hamlin's mom was at the game last night. The ambulance waited to go to the hospital until she came down from the stands. I cannot even imagine what was going on in her mind. As we said before, the Hamlin family asked for us to keep Damar in our prayers, and we will do just that. Welcome back. Time to shine. We are joined right now by CBS Sports football analyst, Super Bowl champion Aaron Taylor. Aaron, the terrifying scene last night in the Bills-Bengals game with Damar Hamlin collapsing and now in critical condition at an area hospital. What was your reaction to seeing that as a former NFL player?
Adam, I think it was like a lot of people's. It was utter disbelief. I couldn't believe what I was watching on television. As long as many of us have been associated with the game of football, a player going down after a hit that did not involve his head, that seemingly at that time looked like was a direct result of the blow and the tackle that Hamlin made, was devastating. We're on vacation up in the mountains with our family. We had just gotten done with dinner. We were sitting around watching the football game, and as the event started to unfold, I knew we were watching something seismic, something historic. I think my personal experience as a former player was disbelief because although we've had other players go down in other sports, and Gary Kubiak went down in 2013 walking into halftime, we've never seen a player that looked apparently to go down directly as a result of the play on the field. And I think all of us are still trying to make sense of what we saw last night.
Certainly unprecedented, as we said to start the show, and you echoed that. And with that said, the mental health side is something that needs to be discussed and talked about. How do players cope with the trauma of seeing a teammate, a brother, go down getting CPR and not signaling that he's okay?
I think what was so stunning to me was watching the tears on the players' faces. And on the broadcast, they sucked back and took a wide shot. And that's always a telltale sign that something's not good. The urgency with which people were moving indicated that something serious, and much more different than we have seen was going on. And it became pretty clear to me that the game needed to be postponed or canceled at a minimum, that this was something different. As a player, you're used to seeing your buddies go down with orthopedic injuries. I've had 2 ruptured patella tendons, rotator cuff, multiple surgeries. That stuff happens in football. We've now introduced head trauma and the consequences of that, but never had we seen somebody receive CPR on the field in such a profound way on Monday Night Football. All eyes in the nation after an incredible Rose Bowl game, watching this unfold to that degree. And for the people that may not be aware, CPR, like it is on the movies, isn't real nice and clean. It's violent, it's frantic, there are often bones that are broken, and it's not a gentle procedure. So from that standpoint, the emotion that we saw from the players on both sides of the football and all stakeholders was significant. So our thoughts go out to Hamlin, his family, his colleagues, his coaches, the opponents of Cincinnati Bengals, and everybody that saw what took place last night on the field, because it was traumatic. And I think having a thoughtful approach to what took place, having ways to be able to diagnose and contextualize what it is we all felt as we saw those things unfold, is at a minimum what's going to be necessary for that to take place for those players that were on the field and witnessed that up close, but also for many of us like myself and my 6-year-old daughter who saw something that's going to be hard for us to unsee.
Very well said. And since last night, we've seen an outpouring of support from players and coaches and organizations, not just in the NFL, but the sports world as a whole. Can you speak to that outpouring, Aaron, of support from the entire sports landscape?
It's been beautiful to see. And I think what was so difficult for the players is that the veil of invincibility was pierced. Football often requires or demands that we do that we deny our basic human instincts to seek pleasure and avoid pain. But last night, we weren't able to do that. So as hard as last night was to watch, I was encouraged to see toughness and bravado yield to empathy, love, and compassion. That was the appropriate response. I honor the league for the decision that they made. I honor the franchises for the decisions that they made to not play the game, to approach this with any other lens than what Damar Hamlin's health and what those players that witnessed that traumatic unfolding last night with a cardiac arrest on the field, to look at it through any other lens would be disrespectful and irresponsible, quite frankly. So with what we know about mental health and how we all suffer, it's not 1 in 5, it's 5 in 5, it's a continuum. All of us experienced to some degree some trauma last night watching what took place, whether we knew Damar Hamlin or not. And to me, Adam, I think that's one of the encouraging things that can come out of this, because it forces us all to relook at how we view these sports and how we respond to these things, because often there's a lot more going on than just X's and O's.
Aaron, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insight. Back time to Schein. We are joined right now by WIVB News 4 Buffalo Sports Director Josh Reed. Josh, you were in Cincinnati at the stadium last night when Damar Hamlin collapsed. Can you describe the reaction, the feeling, the emotions that you had, the emotions in the stadium as people, as yourself included, realized the severity of the situation?
Just heartbreaking, Adam. I mean, just absolute gut-wrenching. It was silent in that stadium. You had 50, 60,000 fans who showed up, media who showed up to cover what we all expected to be the best game of the regular season in the NFL. And then it quickly took a back seat to the human side of things. as you see, the players all kind of encircling and taking a knee and praying for Damar. It was unlike anything I've ever been around. I was up in the press box. That's where I watched the game. At one point, I went over to the railing when they had announced that the game had been canceled, postponed. I was at the railing, and you could see down into the main concourse, the area where the fans come in and out of the stadium. And if you've ever been to an NFL game, you know that you have. There's a buzz, especially after a game. Win or lose, you can always hear the fans. They're chanting, they're talking. It's loud. I watched thousands and thousands and thousands of fans walk down that main concourse, and I could hear individual conversations. It was eerie. It was sad. It was heartbreaking. It was, it was just a bad day, for the NFL, for the NFL family, for the Buffalo Bills, for his teammates. It was, it's really tough, and it's something that, I talk to other media members. It's something that even we are trying to process at this point. I can't even fathom what the Bills players, coaching staff, and members of that franchise are going through right now.
You know the player, but most especially you have covered the person. Can you tell us about the type of person and teammate Damar Hamlin is?
Yeah, I mean, he is beloved as a teammate, first and foremost. And let's face it, you've been in an NFL locker room. That's all that really matters to them. Sure, it's great to be able to get along with media and other people, but that's their number one thing. Perform on the field and be a great teammate. All you need to know is that he is one of Sean McDermott's guys. Sean McDermott doesn't bring in guys who aren't high character. That is not the way he runs his program. Brandon Beane, the Bills general manager, they all want high character guys. Damar Hamlin was one of their guys. Look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I interviewed Damar Hamlin like I do Josh Allen or like I do Von Miller, but the interactions that I've had with Damar Hamlin have become greater this season because his role became greater on the field because Micah Hyde's injury. And in those interactions, he could not have been more gracious the entire time. He's always a smiling guy, always upbeat. And he does a toy drive. And, that number, his goal, kind of his charity, was to get to $2,500. And the last time I looked, fans have poured money into it. I think it's somewhere over $4 million now. And that's not just Bills fans. That's across the NFL. And while I'm on that, the NFL, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but every team in the NFL, all 32, have now changed their Twitter profile pics to the back of Damar Hamlin's jersey, which I think is absolutely fitting for what we're all experiencing right now.
Very well said, Josh. And you're outside the hospital, and whether it was last night or today, you've had a chance to speak with fans of both teams outside the hospital. Tell us about the message they shared with you.
I'd say the big one, there were a couple Bills fans on this road game. What really stood out to me were the Bengals fans that showed up here that I had a chance to talk to. The one woman, she owned a bar here in town. She said when the game got canceled, she closed the bar, locked it up. Her and her friends came over here to the hospital. She said she wanted to pay respects to Damar Hamlin, send her thoughts and prayers out to him and his family. She said, right now, there are no Bills fans, there are no Bengals fans. There's just people who are wishing the best for Damar Hamlin, the Bills, and his family. And I thought that was really touching.
And what has been your reaction to the outpouring of support and love for Damar in the NFL community that we've witnessed over the last 24 hours or so?
It's not surprising, right? That's the beauty of this. So often on a day-to-day basis, there's so much negativity in this world. I mean, we all get caught up in it. We try not to, we get caught up in it, and you try not to dwell on it. But this is one of those moments where, in tragedy, the positive triumphs. And that is such a good thing to see. And, we all sit here and we just, we wait for an update on Damar. We hope the best. There's a 24-year-old kid who's living out his dream of playing in the NFL. And just to have it, won't say come to an end because we hope that it didn't, but, to just be put on pause. Let's call it put on pause right now. It's it was heartbreaking. It was a heartbreaking scene. And it's still something that's really tough to process.
Heartbreaking and gut-wrenching, and football isn't really on the list in terms of what goes into your mind, but the NFL did announce today that the Bills and Bengals game will not be resumed this week, and to me that had to be the case. I mean, football is not our focus today, and playing football, resuming it last night, that to me was not an option, as we talked about earlier in the show. Josh, take us through the NFL's Week 18 schedule plans and what's next for the Buffalo Bills organization.
Yeah, right now it just seems like they are moving ahead to Week 18. The game is not going to be played this week. Now, they kind of left it open that maybe they could revisit it somehow down the road. As you know, with the schedule the way it is, the postseason is right around the corner. This big game, this game had big implications on the seedings for the postseason. So, look, Roger Goodell, the NFL, all the decision makers made the absolute right call by not sending these teams back out onto the field, because there is no way they have had enough time to process everything that's going on. So this is good. This is way bigger than football. You have to step back. You have to take your time. You have to make sure that these players and this organization and the NFL on the whole, look, this isn't in the playbook, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
We've never seen this. We've never seen this before. So they need to make sure they get this right.
Josh,
and do justice by this kid. Do right by this kid.
Very well said. Thank you for joining us as always. We are keeping Damar Hamlin in our thoughts. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell for more videos.